Okay, so the subject I'm going to talk about may surprise some people given what I've said about feminism. I stand by everything I've said, but there is something I want to look at, I guess, with something of a different angle, because I've given this a little bit of thought, and perhaps it's something that I didn't consider enough before. Um, when feminists raise issues like street harassment, sometimes there is a tendency to be a little bit knee jerk and say they're being overly sensitive. And one of the things that tends to be cited is wolf whistling. So the sort of stereotype view of this is builders on a roof, attractive young woman goes past with a good figure, and they wolf whistle. Um, Anti-feminists or people critical of feminism, I think sometimes are a little bit too fast to defend that sort of behaviour. And I posted a video by a woman who was critical of feminism a while back, and she brought up this issue. Well, actually, she wasn't critical of feminism. She described herself as a feminist, but she cited that builders shouldn't be sued for wolf whistling. Um, I agree with that. There shouldn't be legal actions. But anyway, when I posted the video, one of my friends, who I guess would call herself a feminist, a French lady, took issue with that. I think it was, I can't remember which friend it was, but anyway, they took issue with that and said, wolf whistling is not this or that, and I didn't respond at the time, but it kind of got me thinking. I think those of us who are critical of feminism also have to be very careful not to look like we are trivializing issues that women do go through. Um, and I think having reflected on this, wolf whistling, it may appear harmless, but actually, in the end of the day, there is no reason why anyone should make that sort of gesture to a stranger. Even if it's meant in a flattering sense, i.e., you're an attractive young woman, ultimately, I can't understand why it would be seen as harassment because try and put yourself in a woman's shoes. This is what I would say. I mean, as a man, I've often had strangers shout things at me which are not flattering, and it pisses me off. I think it's one of the most obnoxious things to do. You get people out there who, whether they're drunk or whether they're just yobs, they think they can just say things to strangers and that's okay. Now, when guys wolf whistle attractive women, to them it may be, oh well, take a compliment. But how is that woman to know that it is just a harmless sort of gesture? Or how's she supposed to know that that's not a potential, frankly, a potential rapist? So, what I would say is we shouldn't trivialize things like this. Certainly, I don't think anyone should go to jail. And there's a big difference between wolf whistling and, say, a stalker following a woman home and raping her in a back alley. Obviously, there's a big difference. But I do think ultimately there has to be a standard code of behaviour. And, as a bloke, if you wouldn't like, well, let me use this example. If there's a drunk hen party, you wouldn't particularly like them shouting out things as you walk past, much older women who you wouldn't necessarily be attracted to. This is just an example, yelling crude things at you. So it's the same thing, and I think we have to be honest about this. And I'm not coming from a position of being a white knight or a mangina or a feminist for that matter, because I'm none of those things. I'm very critical of feminism, and I remain so. But when feminists raise issues like this, we shouldn't just dismiss it offhand. Because in the end of the day, I mean, put it this way: if it was your girlfriend or your sister or your mother, would you really trivialize it? I guess in making this message to fellow men, would you really trivialize it? Say, oh, it's no big deal. They should take a compliment. I don't think so. If it's your girlfriend, you're going to be pissed off. And if it's your mother or your sister or a female friend, you're going to feel somewhat protective. Um, so, in the end of the day, no, people shouldn't go to jail for it. Um, but I don't think it should be seen as a trivial thing. It can make a woman uncomfortable because on the surface you may think, oh, it's just a compliment, but in the end of the day, you don't know what a stranger's intentions are. I mean, what I would say is, I think the mistake that feminists make is by giving the impression that any sort of compliment is a bad thing, and if I disagree with that, because if that is the case, then how are any men supposed to make the first move on a date? You know, if you can't compliment a woman in a respectful manner, um, how is a man supposed to make a first move? So I understand that, but I also think that it's a mistake to trivialize what some would consider to be not a big deal. In the end of the day, if someone doesn't want attention, then the person giving it should accept that. Um, there are exceptions. I mean, the Charlotte Proudman case, I think that was absurd. If you don't know what I'm referring to, Charlotte Proudman was a young lawyer, and she made a huge deal over the fact that this older man complimented her online. But on that occasion, she actually made the first move. She contacted him, and his comment was very far from crude or anything like that. So I do think common sense also has to prevail in all of this. But in the end of the day, no one should be saying things to strangers. Okay, there's no cause for it. And by the way, when builders do that, they're not looking for a date. They're just doing it because they're being Jack the lads. And it isn't just banter; it can make a woman uncomfortable. So it's not a small thing. Um, you know, Let me know your thoughts. I hope I'm not misunderstood with this video by either side. Um, but yeah, in the end of the day, if unwanted contact is unwanted contact, and you shouldn't be imposing yourself on strangers. It's simple as that. It's different if you're approaching someone in a respectful manner, i.e., you go up to a lady in a bar and say, "Excuse me," make small talk, "Can I buy you a drink?" That sort of thing. I think that's fine, but common sense has to prevail in all of this. Thanks for watching.